Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Blame It on Marketing. We are super excited to be talking to Angeley today about the lovely paradox of if you don't invest in marketing, why do you wonder why your marketing doesn't work? A little bit less sassy than that, but we wanted to talk about some really key trends and key things we've been seeing that's been happening in the marketing world and in the commercial world in general, with an outlook towards 2025 and hopefully how we can change that and help ourselves. And this episode is kind of almost especially geared to like CEOs and founders and people that can make judgments on budgets and money. But I'm sure if you're a senior marketer, you're also having these conversations. So stick around and listen to that. Before we start the episode, I'm going to let Angeley introduce herself.
All right. So really nice to be here. Hi, Ruta. Hi, Emma. And to all the listeners. So I'm Angeley. I'm currently the Chief Commercial Officer at Resourceify, a B2B sustainability platform, but I have 20 plus years experience from both e-commerce and SaaS, Amazon, Intuit, GoDaddy, all kinds of different startups and in many different markets. And I'm currently in Berlin. And so those listeners listening to my accent can tell I'm not from Berlin. I'm actually from sunny San Diego. So really nice to be here today.
So before we dig into the main topic, and apologies everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, there are many animals on this episode. If you're listening, you're going to be like, what are you talking about? But Angeley, before we start, tell us your deepest, darkest work, marketing, confession.
Oh my gosh. My first role in tech was at Amazon in Seattle in the headquarters. So for all the listeners, shout out to any Amazon alumni. I was leading marketing and go-to-market for a division called Amazon Global. It's their international expansion division. And for anyone that knows anything about Amazon, is they make everyone do everything themselves, including all the coding. And I did not come from that track. I did not come from coding. And they said, okay, just learn a little bit of SQL, change the website. You want to change, your positioning, etc. I crashed that portion of the website, I think 3 times. Oh. It cost millions of dollars. And I was like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. And they came back and they said, you know what, it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes, just get up and move on. And it was so sweet. And I had learned I was not the first person to crash parts of the Amazon website. So it was not completely a failure at that stage. We did make something out of it. We turned it into $1 billion, top line revenue business, but not without a few fumbles along the way.
That's all right. That's, if you don't fuck it up, then
how do you learn?
Are you doing new stuff?
Yeah.
So yeah.
You can't make anything better if you don't do that.
Also, by the way, we say a lot with Emma and I, when you work for like a small B2B business or whatever, like mistakes don't matter all that much because you're probably not getting that much traffic or that many views. But when it's Amazon, I assume it's a bit different. Shall we start with what's happening in the world at the moment that is looking, to us at least, like companies are not investing as they usually were in their growth?
Yes. So there's a little bit of a dichotomy going on, especially in early stage scale-ups. I would say seed through Series B, whether you should invest in marketing as part of your go-to-market strategy or you should just have 100% outbound. Some of this depends if you sell to enterprise. Some of it depends if you sell SMB. So it is, highly dependent. But what you find is the companies that invest in marketing, and I don't just mean performance marketing when I say this, just to get quick revenue, companies that actually invest in marketing have a longer term growth trajectory and actually more revenue over time. So this is the constant difference between very fast up cycles and down cycles, and then this constant growth. So we met at SaaS Talk, right? So at SaaS Talk, when I called it the roller coaster of death, usually happens because a lot of early stage founders and CEOs, they only want to do one slice of marketing called performance marketing, and they're a little bit hesitant about that. And then they say, okay, let's just get an army of salespeople, not understanding that your SDRs, your AEs, they cost money as well. And if they are outbounding to companies and trying to introduce themselves and there's no brand presence, there's no value proposition happening, there's no product marketing, it's just a lose-lose game. So there is this dichotomy going on, and I find the pendulum swinging back and forth In the past few years, it was 100% outbound. Now they're mixing in a little bit of product marketing, but there's still not that full-fledged, what I call brand and value proposition and channel marketing and partnerships, etc. And now it's starting to come back. And it's starting to come back because founders and CEOs are realizing that marketing and sales, they are hand in glove that go together. It's not one or the other.
One of the things that we've noticed obviously a lot, as you know, Ruta and I are freelance kind of fractional marketing consultants. You know, we go in and act as CMOs.
All the words.
All the words, all of the buzzwords, guys. And some of the things that we are seeing happening is, you know, this kind of like real struggle to understand why you, at a time like this, you'd want to invest more in your marketing and even your sales efforts, but definitely marketing. You know, we've seen a lot of marketing colleagues have their jobs cut. We've had a lot of, you know, like pushback on some of the stuff that marketers would like to do, you know, outside, even outside of the performance channels where people think you're going to get quick wins. So do you think it's true that you have to, you know, kind of spend in order to grow? Or do you think that's kind of like a misnomer?
It's 100% truth. So I'm 100% with you. And for all the listeners out there, whether you're a founder, CEO, or a marketing, you know, seasoned marketing professional, I come from the States. We have a saying, it's called, you have to pay to play. And this is exactly how it works. People have taken this data analysis and data-driven marketing. So in the past 10 years, both you ladies know, and all the listeners, this whole advent of data-driven marketing. And yes, you want data analytics. Yes, you want ROI. But they've taken it too far where it's every single euro or dollar, whatever currency you're in. It's like you put in 1 and they want out 10. That's not how it works. There are different pieces of marketing that you invest in over time for different reasons that give different types of return. And there's this holistic piece that has been missing. And especially for early stage scale ups, they want to use it almost like a slot machine, where I'm going to put in $1 and I'm going to get out 5 clients out of it. If it worked that way, everyone would do it and everyone would be successful doing it. It doesn't work that way because that's not how the engine works. People need to understand who you are and your value proposition, what your go-to-market piece is about. Performance marketing is a small itty-bitty little slice of that, but it has the most attention because it's the most, I would say, data-driven or exploitatively data-driven piece of it.
I recently had a LinkedIn fight with someone who called out somebody else that we know about their post on ROI and how basically calculating ROI as marketers and being super obsessed with it is actually hurting us because we can't calculate the ROI for every channel accurately because it's all mixed together. It all influences one another. And then this guy was like ripping into Clark, by the way, Clark Barron, if you ever listen to his stuff, he was ripping into Clark. And then everyone in the comments was like, have you ever listened to any of his content? Like, this is at all, like, he is for marketers. And the guy was like, oh no, you have to calculate the ROI of everything. And I was like, okay, what's the ROI of the social post then? He was like, well, it's probably like minus 500 right now, but it's not made for that. And I was like, if you're going to your senior management to sign off every bit of marketing you do with ROI, you're going to absolutely kill yourself. Like, it's just,
so
it's not going to happen. So dangerous.
It's
not
so
saying
dangerous.
that ROI isn't important. It is. It's just how you look at it and how you calculate it and how you work with it. It's not every channel needs to, like Angeley says, put in $1 and get out 5 or 10, because you know what? If we could do that, we'd all be billionaires by now. That's the other thing.
But do we not think the problem here is that we think we've got maybe some founders, CEOs, other senior leadership, people in the leadership team, you know, even like board members as well, who think that's how it works, right? It's like, I've sat in board meetings where I've heard people say, like, just turn on the leads tap by switching on the PPC. And you're like,
please show me where it is.
Please tell me where this magical tap is.
Exactly. You know, one of the things I always say is marketing is not a light switch that you can turn on and off. There's a huge machine that goes behind it. And there's many months, for example, if you're creating a brand, if you're creating a content engine, if you're doing a partnership, if you're doing a go-to-market launch, there's so many different factors at play. And turning on and turning off, you know, where's the light switch? Do they sell it on Amazon? Is it 99 cents? Does it ship to my house?
You should know, Angeley.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Wild. Yeah, I love those points. And yeah, whilst obviously we're huge proponents of making sure that you're taking care of what you're spending, you're making sure that your team's efficient. It's not the be all and end all. And especially if you're a new brand and your CEO saying, hey, I'm going to give you $1 and I need 5 out, you don't even know what your ROI is going to be because you haven't done marketing yet. So there's no way you could set up those expectations without probably shooting yourself in the foot, unless something magical happens and things go really well off the bat.
I think this really comes from, especially in early stage companies, it comes from this ecosystem of very, very tight budgets. And we've gone from this hyper growth where you could spend, 3 to 5 years ago, anything, and they just wanted to see the top line numbers grow. And now we've swung the other way, this stable and predictable revenue growth. Everybody knows profitability, we're breaking even. And so all the numbers get scrutinized so much. You even see this on a top line, not just P&L, but budget KPI. Used to be in marketing, LTV CAC, LTV to CAC, your payback periods. Now everybody's looking at revenue per FTE. And so they're breaking it down to like these minutiae. Yes, I understand why. There are different reasons for that, but it's very difficult to expect a very early stage scale up if you're pre-seed, seed, series A to be profitable. It's very difficult because they're still trying to prove out their product market fit. They're still trying to gain traction. And since we bring up Amazon in this podcast so often, I will just mention that Amazon wasn't profitable for a very long time. And so if they were held to those same standards that we're holding scale-ups to today, they would have tanked and burned many, many years ago. So I think it's just the ecosystem thought, but it's this pendulum swing back and forth. And so now I think as more and more companies try to be profitable and some make it and some don't, then I think we're going to get into that next stage of, oh yeah, we really need marketing. And by the way, you have to actually invest into it.
So if you're a CEO or a founder listening, what is the risk of not investing in marketing right now, even though times seem hard and cash is tight and you want to be extra, extra careful with where you spend? What's going to happen if you don't do the right marketing actions, essentially?
Usually what happens is founders will tend to go to the other side, which means that they will overinvest in their sales teams. And you will see these overblown sales teams. And you can tell the key thing to look at is how much is your ACV, your average contract value, or your ticket size of what you're selling versus how many AEs and SDRs do you have. So if you have I'm just making this up, a ticket size of 10, 15K, let's say you're SaaS out the door and you have this huge overbloated sales team, start to look at your overhead, start to look at your total CAC. You're paying for it, but you're paying for it in other ways. And by the way, this is not a scalable model. If you're selling to enterprise, for example, then the numbers become a little bit easier. Maybe your ACVs are 100K, 150, and you have a land and expand. Yes, you can afford to have sales reps. And then in those cases, they say, oh, I have a small targeted account list and we're selling to enterprise companies and there's only 200 of them. And yes, but those companies want to know who you are. You still need a brand presence. You still need content. And you actually need more of a marketing machine in these cases because in enterprise sales, you're selling to multiple departments. So you really need, I would say, the marriage between marketing and sales to make this happen. So in all cases, whether your ticket sizes are small or large, you still do need marketing, and it still is absolutely, it's like, how do you say, like, how are you going to eat dinner if you don't have your fork and your knife together, just trying to use one? It just doesn't work.
Tell me more about this ticket size versus headcount ratio that you have in your head. Can you give us a little bit of maybe what feels healthy, or like what you would be looking at if you went into a brand new company and you were kind of doing a little bit of an audit, I guess?
It's really interesting because there's also, when I moved to Europe, there's this difference in methodology between the type of CRO, so Chief Revenue Officer, and nowadays marketing has kind of gone under the revenue functions, which I'm not completely in agreement with either. But I would say that I ran across a company once where they said, we want somebody who's very traditional and we'll build out a bunch of AEs and SDRs. And they said, okay, how much is your product? And they said €9 a month on the base. Like, what is this? Why the numbers are all off. So it really depends on what you're selling. Now, if you're selling some complex product that's 100K out the door, you want to have a base of AEs. If you're a small early stage scale up, between 1 to 4, really depending on how big you are. Maybe you have 1 to 2 SDRs. Start small. And what I always say is try to scale the number of units per AE instead of scaling AEs. And this is really the difference in what I've seen over the past few years. People think that when you're scaling, we're just going to keep hiring and hiring and hiring, and you have these over bloated teams. And it reminds me of, there's a very old movie with Ben Affleck called Boiler Room. I don't know if you ladies ever saw it. And basically they brought the salespeople into a room and they're all, on the call, and the supposed SDR, he's like, Racco, and he has the phone, and all the AEs are clamoring to basically get to the call. But if you have to get to a stage where you're like that at a very early stage in your growth, how is that scalable? Just sit down and think how you're going to scale it out. It's just more and more people. And that's not really the term of scalability. Scalability is about having something that is sizable, or what I call the black box, that you can repeat over and over again. So I think the pendulum has swung too far in that particular direction, and now it's coming back. But to your original question, Ruta, it's really about how much are you selling your product or services for? And then you really need to figure out how much does it cost to actually acquire a client, and then which method is best. And this is where that marriage between marketing and sales happens.
I just find it really interesting as well, guys, where, it's this, like, when you look at how you think you're going to generate revenue, when you look at where your audience actually finds, useful information and builds trust and figures out that you are a brand or a vendor that's worth investing in, salespeople are at the bottom of that list. Marketing stuff somewhere in the middle, and listening to their networks and talking to other peers is kind of at the top of their list of, like, okay. And yet we always start at the bottom. We're like, let's make sure we've got the sales team built out first. Then maybe we'll start thinking about marketing, especially in early stage startups. We'll hire a super junior marketer to do that role. And then we'll leave this stuff at the top, the stuff that people, your audience, your ICP really finds, a way of validating that what you do is right. We'll leave that till last, if we ever even get to that point. And I always find that really, really interesting, because there's so much research out there that proves that just that way of thinking just doesn't work. I mean, I'd love to see a business do it differently. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that like whole structure of, like, we start at that bottom place?
I have a mildly interesting example. So this was when I worked at PatSnap. They're a unicorn now, if anyone wants to kind of rate their sales and marketing efforts. But I started working in the UK branch, and we were the only marketing team there. So most of the company was built out in Singapore. But we used to have a butt ton of SDRs and AEs and AMs and CS, and like a whole floor of them. And then there were 13 marketing people. And I remember we used to get in, like, for every £1 we spent, we used to bring back £2 in revenue every year, including our salaries. So the logic to me would be, like, give them as much money as they can keep doing that with, like, we are doing good work. But we used to always have to beg for every single pound, and nobody wanted to give us, like, anything. Nobody wanted us at the table. Like, our head of marketing wasn't even included in senior management, like, discussions, even though our team was absolutely smashing it. But I feel like it's because they started with a sales culture, and most of the senior management were from that sales culture. They brought in marketing because they thought they needed it, and we ended up performing really well, but they still didn't value that side of the business. And lo and behold, we literally all left within 6 months at one point, because, like, it was just, when you're working in a company that they literally don't give a shit about you, yet you're doing such good work, nobody wants to be there. So I feel like it kind of depends on that starting culture. And if there's somebody strong enough to, like, pull it over to the other side, you might get a good balance. And if not, things will just kind of continue as they were.
It's such a shame. And it's supposed to be a balance. It's not supposed to be marketing or sales. It's supposed to be a balance together. And I think what both of you ladies are referring to is these, I'll call them pipeline funnels. I'm not going to call them marketing or sales funnels, but pipeline funnels. And that old adage that I think is like 70 to 80% of the buying decision happens before somebody even speaks to a salesperson.
Mhm.
Because what happens, regardless of what product or service it is, you say, hey, okay, Emma, you're saying, okay, it's network, it's referrals. They say, okay, here's the product. You take out your phone and you start Googling it and you start looking at the content and you start talking to your network. Is this something I want to buy? And so this is where marketing influences that top 70 to 80%. I think they actually call it, buyer and kind of brand related types of funnels at the very top. And you see the sales piece when you go to the funnels at the very, very bottom. At the very, very bottom, because their job is really to take somebody who's quite keen and interested and warmed up already and convert them and close them. And good salespeople, very good at what they do, but they have to basically be teed up. It's like if you're running a relay race and you have the person at the very end, you have 3 people before you holding the baton over before you get to the last piece. And so you can't run a relay race alone, is what I would say.
And even if you can, the steps before make your life so much easier, right? Like there's the amount of, even if you have SDRs that are booking cold meetings, like the fact that you have a plethora of marketing, you're in the space, there's credible people talking about you, it's going to make their life so much easier. Like imagine being a salesperson at HubSpot or Salesforce. Who are you going to call in B2B that have no idea who you are? Nobody.
Yeah,
nobody.
So true. So true. So if you're listening to this and you're a marketer, and obviously I know we want to aim this episode at, our kind of more senior folk, but if you're a marketer listening to this and you're going, oh my God, I just cannot get my company to take me seriously, I can't get them to invest in marketing at the rate that they should be, what would you suggest they do, Angeley? Where would you start?
I would start with actually doing a little bit of market research about the customer, because you don't want to go into this type of discussion of me versus them or marketing versus sales, because that just creates too much polarization. I would start with the client, and I'll give you an example from my time at GoDaddy. So for anyone that knows GoDaddy, you just look them up on YouTube, look up GoDaddy old ads. They are misogynistic, they were terrible. And we wanted to get into a new space, which was website building. We wanted to compete with Squarespace and Wix and kind of reposition ourselves. And we did a lot of market research. And what we found was the current cohort of clients and also the new projected cohort of clients, 60% of them were going to be female-led businesses. So you actually have to look at, okay, who are you selling to? And then what's the best way to acquire them? So this is where marketing started to step in and said, okay, we have to reposition, do our value propositions, the way that we do our ad, our tone of voice, everything. But the way that we won that argument was by focusing on the customer. Also, at SaaS Doc, I gave a really great case study, my favorite one, Old Spice. Especially to all of the men, if there's any men listening to this, Old Spice, it's a men's deodorant. You would think, oh, let's target it towards men. We have the model down. They were actually losing market share. And this is, you guys can Google this. It's one of the best case studies out there. The majority of people buying Old Spice was women. And so when they restarted retargeting it towards women, right? And then they came out with the glorious campaign, The Man Your Man Can Smell Like. And it was humorous and funny. It was golden. And for those of you on the call, if you're a founder or CEO thinking, it's just kitschy marketing, it's just clickbait, not at all. You can look at the case studies, millions in revenue gained, market share gained, all the numbers are there to back it up. And so again, it starts with that customer research, customer profiling. So I would say to any marketing leader listening to this, go back to your customer, go back to your ICP.
Excellent. Shall we wrap up this episode with a little bit of marketing gossip? Angeley, is there anything that you've seen lately that you love or has annoyed you? Much like the Old Man Spice? That's not what it's called. Old Spice.
You've just ruined their brand.
I'm so sorry. I was thinking of men's deodorant and Old Spice and it kind of just merged together. Old Spice, is there any marketing gossip that you'd like to share with us?
Yes. And actually, my colleagues and I were talking about this in a call the other week. You ladies have seen that Burger King ad. So a woman gives birth, and after she gives birth, she's eating the burger from Burger King. And I bring up this ad. So anyone just type in Burger King, pregnancy ad or whichever, you'll see it. It's everywhere. So this is the salacious gossip. Everybody's trying to figure out, is this empowering for women or is it I don't know, mansplaining and there's two different types. So on one camp, everybody's like, yes. And the women who've given birth are like, okay, we just went through 24, 36, whatever hours of, pain and work. And some of them like, I just want a burger, just give me whatever I want. And they felt it was super empowering. And then the other camp was like, no, this is super unhealthy food and it causes cancer and it causes this and that. And how are you promoting this? So the reason I'm bringing this up as gossip is because this campaign has sparked such a debate about what a woman's right is to feel and to want after she gives birth. And then the other camp trying to say what's actually appropriate and what people should be eating. So anytime a marketing campaign can really stoke the fires and create such a conversation and debate, I think is super, super interesting and very, very smart. So a shout out. I never usually give props to fast food companies, but shout out to the team at Burger King. They did something.
I agree. I don't know what camp you're in, Angeley. It sounds like you're in the I think they did a good job camp. I saw it and I thought the same, because I just thought if anybody understands anything to do with like women's health in general, you would know that after you've given birth to a baby, you just let her do what she needs to do, people. So yeah, I'm on the camp of I thought it was actually very, very smart.
I've seen some not LinkedIn posts, excuse me, that would be weird. I think I've seen some other social media posts, Instagram
about it.
Yeah, no, but I've seen like Instagram posts where women are like post-labor, they're like, I want my sushi, I want my peanuts, I want like whatever I couldn't eat for the last 9 months, I want my caffeine. So if you want a burger, fucking get a burger, innit? Like,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And if you choose Burger King over McDonald's, that's up to you.
Exactly.
I would also say on the B2B front, LinkedIn, so most of us all use LinkedIn. I thought I heard some gossip that they're going to remove the top voice, the orange ones, the orange yellow colored ones, and just have the blue ones. So there's something more to that. I'm not sure why. The same reason I think Instagram started like covering up how many people liked a certain post, something to do with, biases going on. So in the B2B space, that's another
interesting. Have you guys seen the paid for premium company pages?
Yes, I got it. It popped up for one of my clients yesterday.
Yeah, I'm trialing it and they've got some interesting stuff on there. So like, I'm sure, LinkedIn is super closed off about what integrations it can do in terms of tech. So in terms of automation, it's quite limited. So I saw that they're basically trying to build that into their premium packages. So the premium company page automatically invites people to follow you that have been engaging with your content. And I was like, oh, okay. I see what you're doing there. Interesting.
Exactly. They've been, when I think Microsoft bought them, right? A long time ago.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Ever since Microsoft bought them though, like I felt like the innovations on LinkedIn kind of just went down and now everybody uses it, but it'll be interesting to see in another however many years what the new LinkedIn would be. Like, what's the new platform? Because it always changes all the time. And this one has seemed to, it's great, but it seemed to plateaued. And I'm just curious, what would be next?
Also, why did it take them 5 years to do scrollable video? Like, come on, guys. We already post video on LinkedIn. Anyway, I guess maybe they're working on their paid for features, and that's the priority, right? Not the free features that everyone gets. So I kind of get that in terms of product roadmap, but still makes it easier and nicer for everyone to use, right? Which is kind of what they want.
Well, thank you so much, Angeley, for joining us. It's been awesome. So for any founders, CEOs, board members listening, please do not, cut your marketing spend. Please have a really careful think about how you expect your business to grow. So don't turn off that tap, but also don't try and get us to, find the magic lead tree or whatever it is you think is out there, because it doesn't exist. But thanks again, Angeley. And we will see you on blameitonmarketing.com. We'll get Angeley in there. So if you've got any particular spicy questions you want to ask her and you don't want your boss to see, head to blameitonmarketing.com and we'll get those answered.